Hello, I'm Professor Khalid Khan. Today we will talk about the recent update of the Declaration of Helsinki. I am at the University of Granada, and with me I have Professor Aurora Bueno. Aurora, please can you introduce yourself?
Thank you, Khaled. I am Aurora Bueno Cabanillas, Professor of Preventive Medicine and Public Health at the University of Granada and the Chair of the Research Ethics Committee in Granada.
Okay, thank you. The two new things that exist in the Declaration of Helsinki pertain to community engagement, and this means undertaking research with and by citizens, not just undertaking research for or about them. And the second element pertains to research integrity, and this implies that researchers comply with both ethical and research professional standards. So we will see how these two elements ought to be covered in an application made to a research ethics committee. To obtain approval, the researchers submit various documents to the committee listed here. And after a process of corrections and amendments, the materials are presented to an ethics committee session. In this session, all the committee members examine the various aspects of ethics pertaining to the project presented. And they look at the scientific as well as legal aspects in addition to the ethical aspects. The key document that pertains to the principle of respect for persons or autonomy is the patient information sheet and the consent form. So I'm going to ask Aurora how researchers can incorporate in their protocol the new elements concerning the Helsinki Declaration.
Well, the ethical principle go on being as valid as ever. Nevertheless, both new features in Helsinki Declaration are highly relevant and very welcome. First, voluntary participation. Freedom to take part in a study requires full information about the research purpose. What are the implications of accepting participation? What are the risks and benefits? Patient participation in preparing the information sheet and also in designing the process of obtaining consent is the best way to achieve autonomy in the decision to take part. This will also increase the ethical rigor of the consent, and then, of course, this will increase research integrity.
Okay, thank you. We now move on to the next element, which pertains to beneficence. Here, it's important to recognize that science is for the sake of society. The ethics committee is not so much interested in publication in the same way as scientists are. What they are interested in is examining whether the proposed research ultimately has the potential to improve the outcomes. Here, they have to take into account the participants who undertake the risks involved in the research, that their sacrifice should ultimately be able to benefit society. Participants may benefit in some way by taking part, for example, through the protocolized care they receive, but in the end, their act of participation is an act of altruism with the view to benefit others in the future. So, Aurora, can you comment on how this element need to be taken into account by the researchers?
You are completely right. Beneficence depends on the benefit to the society. To get this benefit, the research objective must be relevant to society. What makes an objective relevant is that it has the power to add scientific knowledge in an area in which there are some uncertainty It may be because of lack of information about the best way to prevent, diagnose, or treat a disease or condition, or it may be because of the high clinical practice variability. Patients who suffer from the disease under study should have a voice in determining the relevance of the questions. Research must be useful. Usefulness requires a strong methodology that must be conducted with intellectual honesty. And again, this is related to scientific honesty, scientific integrity.
Okay, thank you. Moving on, the next element pertains to non-maleficence. Here we've got to take into account that as research develops from a basic idea and move towards the bedside, first we tend to start with healthy volunteers. At this stage, the risk is highest. In the next step, we expose patients to new interventions. At this stage, the risk is a little bit lower than the earlier first exposure. And finally, when we have more information, we undertake larger trials with many patients and centers involved. What is clear is that there is no such thing as zero risk. So, Aurora, how can researchers emphasize this element of their protocol?
Generally, the risk for research participants should be equivalent to that of ordinary clinical practice. The protocol has to specify, and participants should be made aware not only of the risk, but also the measures put in place to detect, treat, and compensate for any potential harm. The existence of an independent data monitoring board, including community representatives among the board members, provide a good way to demonstrate that this aspect is correct.
Okay, thank you. Finally, we move on to the element concerning justice. Here, we've got to keep in mind that usefulness is the driver behind the decision of the ethics committee. The topic chosen must identify a problem which causes a significant societal burden, both in terms of prevalence and in terms of effect on life quality. And the people who participate in the study should represent those who will ultimately benefit after the research has been completed. And this aspect is captured by defining clearly the participant eligibility criteria, and multi-center studies further contribute to the generalizability of studies undertaken. So, Aurora, might you explain how community engagement can help in addressing this element of the protocol?
Well, justice requires that the probability of taking part in a study is similar for different subgroups of patients with the study condition. This increases the future probability of obtaining societal benefit from the research findings. Therefore, citizens need to be engaged in the formulation of inclusion and exclusion criteria. Patient participation also works for improving practice and transparency. They can keep the study on the path stipulated in the approved protocol. Justice also requires research integrity in the whole research process. This is in the hands of researchers. Study registration in advance, publication of protocol and statistical analysis plan, and data sharing contribute to showing research integrity.
Okay, thank you. So, to summarize, the protocol of the study should demonstrate explicitly how the community has been engaged in the various aspects of the protocol development, and the researchers themselves should give undertakings with respect to avoidance of misconduct, declaration of their own conflicts of interests, and to ensure that the research will be undertaken according to professional standards. With this, we bring this video to an end. Thank you for listening.
Thank you.